Hi, I'm Flittish with Thorbjorn Park over here in Tarboro, North Carolina. And I'm going to show you guys how to make your first basic boffer today, but I'm going to show you just a little bit about some options you have. So, one of the more basic ones is you do the foam pool noodle, you do PVC pipe, which I know you can't see, but it's the much thicker handle, and then you do your pommel piece. You also have options where you could go and buy a wine bag on a golf club, and then you do your own pommel. You also can start getting, kind of fancy covers, because I like shiny objects. So this one is the foam pool noodle, the golf club, and then foam pool noodle for its pommel. We did end up going a little more fancy when we made this guy. It was originally going to be a reward. Things didn't turn out, but you can add just extra stuff. This is just camping foam to make that extra pretty little piece on this guy. But you also have, you can start getting a little more complex. Obviously, this guy doesn't have his head cover, but it's pool noodle, pipe, corduroy cover, so it's actually kind of nice and soft. And then you've got, you'll end up making a special cover for this guy. Today, I'm going to teach you just the basic golf club pool noodle boffer. So you'll need the graphite golf club. Don't get the metal ones, it doesn't work, but you want the graphite core golf clubs. You can remove these handles, it's not required. I like it because it seems to give my swords a little more balance, but it does remove a lot of weight by getting rid of this rubber piece. Honestly, for your first one, try it out, see what you like. Then, I did pre-make the cover for it. So you'll want to do that by basic math. You want to measure the diameter of your core, so the distance all the way across by pi, 3.1415. And then measure that and add enough for a seam allowance. So I usually do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So basically whatever your pi measurement ends up, this one was 10.99. I called it 11. I added a 1/2 inch seam allowance to both sides. So it was 12 inches all the way across. Then I sewed it up. To do the ends so they have kind of that boxier shape, I'm going to show you real fast. All I do is basically fold it, sew across. Do the same thing on the other side. You get this kind of little parallel lines here, and it makes a nice little box at the bottom. Kind of like that. Ignore my messy seams. Since this is a stretchy fabric, I did do a zigzag as well, just for some extra stability to the fabric, because since it does stretch. But I chose the very shiny one because I like sparkly things. The other thing you're going to need is packaging tape, and we use a lot of the hockey tape. You can also use Coband, which I did use on this one. It's just like that horse wrap, or you can buy the expensive Coband. I buy the horse wrap at the tack and feed store type places because A, it's cheaper, and B, you can get pretty colors. So, okay. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to decide if we want a short sword or a long sword. My class usually just uses short swords, so that's what we're going to do. They can be as short as 24 inches, as long as 36. I'm going to just kind of go by the length of this how I want it.
And where would you find the rules on that?
Yes. And let me unbury the nice rule book. Because we do have the rule book right here. Gives you the basic information. You want to start weapon safety. That's the first thing you want to pay attention to, because you don't want anyone getting hurt. It's fun to smack each other, but yeah, you don't want to get hurt. So you go over that. It gives you the stabbing tip, the courtesy padding, strike legal areas, handles, pommels, cross guards. It gives you everything that you need to know in the book. The book is available online, and it's free to download just because it's the equipment book. So then you go further in, and it gives you more information on the different types of weapons, and then we can go into shields. But today we're doing a basic short sword. So they may stab and slash. Sorry, over 18 inches. I was wrong when I said 24. So over 18 inches and up to 36. At least 2/3 of the length must be strike legal. Strike legal is where you can actually hit someone with it. That has gone over, I believe, in weapon safety. No, right here, sorry. Strike legal refers to the weapon let me quit tripping over my own tongue. Refers to the portions of the weapon that are sufficiently padded to prevent injury when used to strike an opponent at full force. So we want at least 2/3 of the length to be that width. So, and we're gonna go for a third of it to be substituted for heavy padding. We're gonna go ahead and just go a basic one. So I'm gonna go about 30 inches long because that's kind of what I like. So I get my tape out, I go and I measure from the end to 30 inches. Then I grab my box knife, I stab, and then I just spin my pool noodle. It doesn't always line up perfect, you see right there and there, but you can then just twist. Your pool noodle will come apart. So we'll set this other piece over to the side. All right, so now we have a 36-inch long piece of pool noodle, which feels very short, but it's not. So I'm gonna set that to the side for the moment, and then, oh, would you hand me the yellow foam? So then we have this stuff. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick. We bought this stuff at an upholstery shop, basically. And so what we're gonna do is, so if you notice the hole here, it's a lot bigger than this guy. So we want it so this guy's not flailing about in there. So we're gonna use this to make yourself some basically supports inside. So what I do, I usually just come and I go ahead and go 1, make a chunk that's 2.5 inches wide, and 2. Then we can set this guy aside. And it's a little breezy, so I'm trying to make sure things don't run away. All right. So I then go to the tip of my golf club. I grab my packaging tape, which I just picked up at the dollar store. It doesn't have to be any like heavy duty special packing tape. And I find the end. Pull that up. And as you don't want it to go anywhere, I do 1 wrap without anything in there. So that packing tape is on there nice and firm. Then I stick my piece of foam, I line it up with the end, and then I put the packing tape over it, and then I kind of roll. And I try to get a nice tight roll in here, and then I use the packing tape to make sure that's nice and tight. Get at least 1 full wrap around. I think I got 2 there, or somewhere in there, 1.5. So then you have that nice piece there. I then go ahead, and because this is kind of flumpy, just kind of going to be flooping around and causing you some issues, as well as if it's not covered with tape, it's going to make it a little harder to shove our pool noodle on. So I then go ahead and I wrap that guy pretty good. Got the tape, call it good, kind of tighten it down so you don't have sticky edges sticking up. So you have just this little nubby at the top. We then will use your pool noodle to measure. We're going to go down to here. So we make our other support in here. I left my thumb there. We go ahead, we grab the tape. I do a wrap around, tuck my little guy in here, and then wrap again. This time I'm being kind of lazy and I'm just going to cross wrap to get all the foam covered. Then wrap and smooth down the tape. So, we have a golf club with 2 random foamy bits on it. We then are going to go and shove it in. It's a little bit loose and we don't really want it super loose. So since the tip was really loose, I'm going to actually go ahead and there's the yellow foam. Do another little bit on it just to make sure it doesn't flail about. So, just a little chunk like that. Grab the tape again. You go through a lot of packing tape, it feels like, especially when you're making your first ones. When we made our first ones, we were doing this like 2-inch pool noodles, and we were having to do a slice all the way down and then add some more pool noodle in so it was thick enough to actually be strike legal. That's a pain in the butt way to do it, but if it's what you can afford, it's what you can afford. These pool noodles at Walmart right now are about $3.50, which is pretty reasonable. PVC pipe I think was about $5 because you want to use, I think, 1/2 inch up to 3/4 inch. So, but usually when you buy pieces of the PVC, you can get multiple ones in there.
And then the graphite golf clubs, if you just go to like Goodwill or someplace, you can pick them up for $1 a piece, cut the heads off.
Yeah, and that's not bad at all. If you can find a little head cutter, or if you just want to take the time and like even use this and just score and score and score. It'll take a while, but it makes a really nice lightweight sword, so your arms don't get tired as easy. So we found some of ours at a Goodwill bins back in Washington when we were living there for $1.50, and then at the other thrift store we went to, they were $1. So it really does depend which thrift store you go to. All right, so we now do have a bit of a thicker head. It's gonna make it a smidge harder to go through, but it means your sword's not gonna flail about as much, which is a good thing.
And the part of the reason we do that is so your foam noodle doesn't take a beating and will last a bit longer.
Yeah, then your sword does last a little longer. All right.
Because with that thing whipping around, it can destroy the inside. And
yeah, because these are basically a bunch of bubbles. Like this is closed cell foam, which means it's made of a bunch of bubbles versus kind of a bunch of like coral looking stuff. So if it's beating around inside, it's popping all those bubbles, reducing your foam longevity. Just like Leaf said, it does make your sword last a lot less. So we now have, look, it's not a wobbly. So I push it pretty close to the head there. Okay. Next part we want to do is, the stabby tip, isn't it?
yes.
So
Did we bring camping foam?
I think there's some blue foam in the repair box, which is sitting next to me because I'm a ditz. Oh, in there. Yeah, that's what I want. I think there should be enough chunks of the blue foam. So now we're trying to make a legal stab tip because you don't want to stab people. So I have a bunch of triangles from when I was trying to make a D20. But the foam had just made it hard on it. Okay. So the first thing I like to do personally is I like to put some tape over the end here just to give another layer of protection. I really should have just held on to it. There we go. As you're watching crafting with someone that doesn't always pay attention to what they're doing. Okay. So then we take the sword, and normally we would have a Sharpie. I also forgot that. So I'm going to just kind of mark it with my scissors. So we can go ahead and go cut, cut, and cut. Then I can use cut, cut, cut. It's not perfect, but it does get covered up.
Yeah, you gotta make sure your stab tip is about 1.5 inches, just like strike legal padding. It's got to be the same distance of foam, amount of foam between your core and the person you're hitting.
Yeah. So, I might go a smidge thicker, but safety-ish. So right here we are at 2.5 inches of foam that we're going to be putting over the top here. So we then go ahead and literally just kind of fold it on there. I do usually kind of go one layer at a time. But you hold that piece on, you tape it on. I usually go 2 ways. It does make the tip of your sword a little bit crunchy-ish, but it kind of goes away after a battle or two. There we go. Okay, there we go. Now we're matching up again. And I know I'm being filmed, so I'm just doing things wrong, apparently. Okay. Here, tape over. And if you get wrinkles in your tape, the world won't end. It's just, you know, you have wrinkles. Alright. And then usually on the top one, I try to get it nice and firm, which means I put a little more tension. If you notice, it kind of curls like that. So that makes it a little nicer. Makes it look a little more like a sword-ish thing. Because let's be honest, these don't look like swords. They are boffers, they are safety, but I mean, it's still fun to go hit people. As long as they're accepting. Don't hit random people, that's, you know, weird. Okay. I do all the tapes over the top, and then I like to do a run around the side. That way, it's not going anywhere. So, you got your top. Now we go back down to the bottom. I do like to clean it up a little bit. I do have that gap there. So that's when I'll take this guy and I'll just kind of try to, because I can see both sides then. So, you know, you then have kind of a flat bottom. You can angle this, make it look a little prettier. It's all kind of personal preference as long as you don't take too much off. I a lot of times will go like this. Try not to lose foam all over the park.
Yeah, our workshop is covered in foam. We just got foam chunks everywhere.
Hey, at least I'm not doing stuff with fur anymore. Otherwise we had fur all over the house. So, you know, you gotta take it where you get it. So, it kind of curves the bottom down a little bit, which is nice. So, okay. Then we want to tape the bottom because we don't want this spinning around either. So, we want a nice secure option.
Yeah, it'd be really bad if you go to swing at somebody and your foam protection just comes flying off like a missile.
Yeah. So, what I usually do, one down, two down, and then we're going to do some wrapping. So, these are kind of like, I hold it here, and then we're going to spiral it off. So, And this is a spot where, as much as I, like, the OCD part of me wants it to not have any wrinkles, the reality part of me recognizes there's going to be wrinkles.
So on this one, typically you don't want to really compress your foam a whole lot because that makes it hit harder and hurts. But down here, you really want to wrench on that tape. You want to compress it down. You want it to stay in place. You want it to be secured.
Yeah. This is why we buy the tape at the dollar store, because you do use a lot of it. Pulling it around. Alright. Not going anywhere. And cut. Alright. So, we have sword. Oh, pommel. I almost forgot pommel. That would have been bad. Alright, so pommel now. Pommel's not near as much of a thought, well, for me. I go ahead. It's basically so my sword doesn't slip out of my hand for me. Some people do really decorative ones. I've done some decorative ones that are fun.
Well, it also adds a little protection in case somebody, falls into you, or you walk back into somebody who's on the ground.
Yeah, or you swing your arm back and you smack someone. I mean,
Yeah.
it is a good protection thing. It should be there, but simple is fine. Alright, so I grabbed a few of these pieces. I'm going to slip this guy. Wait, I feel like I'm missing something. Do I put foam on before I put my pommel on?
I don't know. That's
So.
how you do. However you do it.
So I'm just doing a little bit of shaping. There we go. So you just have like a little bit like that. Okay. Then I usually slip it on. I try to leave usually like my finger knuckle length away from it before I put this on. So, weep. I swear a third of this video is me going, get the tape. Okay. And then I kind of just like wrap a little bit. Come on. There we go. Tape it on. Got the tape. Alright. So then what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to stuff it with extra foam. Just kind of as protection as my foam tries to run away. I'll pick those up in a couple minutes. Actually, right there. So basically, your end's not going to come out. So you got your end stuffed with that. Tape again. So one tape for the foam for me. And one tape all the way down to the handle. Move it, and then yell at the tape a little bit as it's not paying attention to you, and then I kind of just go a little ways up just to soothe my OCD of a little bit of smoothness there. Then we cut that end off. So we now have the inside of your sword. So now we're going to do the outside part, which is probably one of the easiest pieces after you've got this guy sewed up. So since you've sewed it into a tube, you then slip it on, which is finding me just a smidge. I always end up making them super long, and then I have this big old bit of leftover, which is like, I need to just measure more. But I had these prepped just in case we had extra people show up. So it was going to be for any length of sword. So it could be for a long sword, could be for a short sword. This leftover probably can go for a dagger. So I pull it on, and then I also make sure it's kind of tight, because you don't want it just like flopping around. So you pull it tight, and then I'm going to just do one quick wrap of this hockey tape that we buy off Amazon.
Yeah, you can use any cloth tape for the exterior. We really like the hockey tape. It's a sports. You can buy it in bulk. It's usually cheaper than actual cloth tape.
Yeah, and the cloth tape gets dirty and kind of sticky on the outside, whereas like hockey tape is made to, you know, be handled a bunch. Cloth tape for medical is made to just usually hold a bandage on. So yeah, hockey tape is kind of, sports tape is a little bit better. I do like the Co-Band because, I mean, you can see this one, it is very dirty, but it kind of has a nice little bit of squish to your hand. The hockey tape's great too. So I've got it taped where I want it. I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting the excess off. Sharper scissors. Maybe not. Alright, there we go. I do usually just give maybe inch extra, just in case, you know, you need to redo it, then you have a little more to pull down on. But you don't need to leave a whole bunch extra there. So yeah, we definitely have enough length for a little dagger if we wanted to do that. So we have that guy on. It's a smidge loose. I could tighten it up. I might actually go back and tighten it up later, but it's not so loose that it's just slipping around and doing anything weird. So then we have our pommel cover that gets slipped on. So some people do longer pommels, so you know, whatever you are comfortable with works. I just kind of like it so my hand doesn't fall off. But yeah, if someone accidentally whacks into you, it's kind of nice to have. Same concept here. Is that the end? That is the end. Alright. Pull it down a little bit. And tape. So with the pommel, you kind of have your own choice. I mean, it's not much. You're not going to get much out of that fabric, so you can either just go with the hockey tape or you could cut it off. I'm going to just on this one go. So then you kind of just angle it a little bit. And so you're going to get a nice wrap on that. Just kind of spin your sword, hold the tape tight, and keep going up. I did have it where the fabric was trying to sneak out and show a little bit. It's not a big deal, but a little bit of, don't want it to look pretty too. But your first swords aren't always going to look great. I think all of ours have been taken apart and redone multiple times, so. And then we're up to the other little bits of fabric that we're going to go over. I have a little piece showing there, so my OCD is going to have me go back and make sure I cover it. You can actually take this tape up a little bit further if you'd like, or you can just stop here. I personally like the look where it's done. So now have your first sword, technically you are supposed to put a label of some sort on them. We need to actually finish labeling ours, but we put a little leather badge on the bottom of ours that has a little tri-skull.
Probably too shadowy, I don't think.
It might
get
be,
details.
yeah. But basically you want to label your swords so no one takes them, because your swords aren't supposed to be shared unless you give someone permission, and then that way people, if your sword gets dropped on the battlefield, people know whose it is. So that is the basic sword.